Welcome everyone to this Force Friday. Today we're going to be discussing the exciting topic of learning how to draw comic book heroes. It's something that's very close to my heart and soul. Something that you guys may not be aware of. I'm kind of known in the animation industry, but the irony is I didn't go to school for animation. I went to school for comics, and I thought I would share a little bit of my past with you around that. So when I was in high school, I took 4 years of mechanical drawing and architecture, and math got way too intricate for me. I did terribly in math. I kind of cheated my way all the way through high school when it comes to math. Um, so I was like, oh my God, I'm out. Like, I can't deal with all of the algebra that was involved in, let's say, architecture, which is the path I was on. I was collecting a lot of comic books at the time. And the thing that really turned the corner for me that changed my inspiration was The Dark Knight by Frank Miller, which I have to say, some of you, if you don't know the comic book industry that well, that book, the one that's here in the middle, that really started the revolution of returning to making superhero films. In the 70s, you had Superman. And then if you think about it, nothing happened until really all the way into the late 80s, early 90s when this book came out. Okay, this Dark Knight book. And then all of a sudden you had Tim Burton's Batman, right? All of a sudden showed up, and that was all inspired by this one comic. And now you have today, obviously, this global superpower of superhero films with DC and Marvel Comics, right? So I just wanted to inform you guys, like, this is where it all really started for me. I put The Watchmen in there because that came out around the same time. The late 80s was a great time for comics. And then to the far right is something called Cosmic Odyssey. That was illustrated by an artist named Mike Mignola, which some of you may know is the guy who created Hellboy. This was something he did right before Hellboy. So if you guys like Mignola, and if you're interested in his past, Cosmic Odyssey, besides it being a great story, it's kind of an interesting bridge to see how Mignola went from drawing generic comic book style to Cosmic Odyssey, which is kind of in between generic and who he is today with Hellboy. And you can see this like transitional moment, really, really interesting. So before we launch in today, like I said, I wanted you all to be aware, I love comics. I do have to transparently say, I think part of Force and why it is what it is because I come from this space. I like dramatic poses, right? I love the fight scenes in comics. I watch movies that are action adventure, like I love all of that stuff, and I try to bring that to my work. So, all right. So welcome, guys. Diego, how you doing?
Hey Mike, how are you? How are you guys? So happy
Good.
today. Really exciting topic.
Yeah, really super exciting. How are you doing, Swenley?
I'm good. Feeling kind of heroic today.
Yes. And last but not least, Matunjay, how are you doing?
Yeah, fine. Ready
All
to draw
right.
some comic heroes.
Yeah, so super exciting. Like I said, we're going to basically give you three major pointers today on how to create superheroes. What does it mean? How do you pump up the drama? What's the difference between a sort of typical drawing and one that cranks up to heroic status? What makes heroes heroes, right? And how do we get to that place? So, and I highly recommend, if you haven't seen these films, these are three amazing comics. If you're interested in comics at all, I recommend all three of these. The Dark Knight, the middle one, like I said, changed my life. I wouldn't be sitting here today if it wasn't for that comic. That comic is what led me to the School of Visual Arts in New York, which had a comic book program, which is why I happened to pick that school. And then ironically, while I was in school, I found out that Disney Animation had an internship program connected to the school I went to. And I just got into animation before I got into comics. My senior year and the year after, it was just a race. I had both portfolios going. Whoever won was the path I was going to go down, and I got into Disney Animation first. So that's, that also helped develop Force, right? But even prior to all of that, it was comics. Comics are what I drew as a kid. I was tracing panels, I was drawing panels, I was making my own comics. In high school, I was making my own comic books. Comics is what got me here. Okay. All right, so what we're going to do is a little different today. I'm going to give you guys a topic that we're going to discuss. I think I'm going to do a quick sketch to show you what it doesn't look like. We'll discuss the topic. I have examples of what it should look like to push more heroics into your art. And then each artist will take on that particular topic. So today we're going to start with shape, right? So here's some great shapes. I'm going to draw for you some terrible shapes, and then we'll come back and talk about those in a moment. So when it comes to heroes, you know, if I'm just sketch something out here, I'm just going to draw a figure, right? Here's a figure from the front view. It's got its rhythms. We know there's no rhythm in the torso in the front, really, unless there's a back to front view. But here's sort of a regular Joe. It's like Captain America before he gets all juiced up, right? Right. So you have this kind of character going on. Notice, as simple as this is, by the way, as simple as I make this, I'm still using this abstraction of the force shape, just in very long, thin shape design. It's in the legs, it's in the arms, right? We can go to a side view of a character. It looks something like this. I'm still using these straight to curves to really help me create shape design very quickly in the body. And I can do it, you know, really fast, right? Sort of cheap, you know, it's not, what I mean by cheap is not a lot of effort in doing that, right? But kind of, you know, generic, right? Meaning very general, typical figure, typical proportions, typical size and thickness. This body is shaped out enough to do the job that it would do, right? The function of the actual pose itself. So that all works. So the thing here to try and figure out is, what is the difference between this and this, right? All of a sudden we have heroes, and building your sensitivity to looking at characters of this stature, of these proportions, of these types of shapes. What does that mean, right? In the world of shapes, how do we get to shapes that feel more heroic than, let's say, a normal body shape, right? So my first handoff here is going to be to Swenley. He's going to talk to you guys about how do we crank up shape design to create characters that are more heroic than, let's say, the average day male or female figure, okay? All right, you ready, Swenley?
Yes, I am, Mike.
Okay, here we go.
All right, let me share my screen. Okay, you guys can see my screen, all right?
It's coming on, there you go, yep.
Yes. So drawing comic book heroes using force shape. Now, first of all, we have our do's and don'ts. Like we talked about in the past and also in the force books, in general, you want to avoid the top row of shapes because they are unforceful, you know, they are symmetrical, and generally you want to have shapes that have a straight to curve design just because of their clarity. You know, also the contrast of straights and curves, you know, creates interest, and the shape has energy, it has a clear direction. So it gives you drawing a better sense of energy and dynamism. Okay, so in talking about shapes in terms of superheroes, the biggest shape that we have is, of course, the silhouette, which leads us to body types. You know, you have the typical body types that you see are, first of all, like the standard heroic guy, like for example Superman or Thor. You know, you have big chest. Um, Usually they have like strong muscular arms, a small waist, and pelvis. And then you have the more brutish kind of character, like the Hulk or the Thing, which typically are pretty much like a big wall or a brick, you know, uh, to symbolize like this brute force and raw power. And then you have like a more regular guy, like for example, and of course these are extremely stylized. So in a stylized world, this would be like maybe a character like Spider-Man, very agile and flexible. And again, these are stylized, but the same principles can apply to, let's say, slightly more realistic uh, design for your comic book heroes, you know. So it doesn't matter which style you want to work in. What matters is the ideas, the principles, the basics remain the same across the whole style range. So here again, you have big barrel chest, smaller waist and pelvis, muscular arms, chest pushing out. And Diego will get later more in detail about the posing, because that's also important. Like the whole character is more bending forwards, like ready to attack. And then you have your more slender and an athletic superhero like Captain America, for example, like Mike mentioned earlier. So again, no matter what style you prefer to work in, hyper-realistic or stylized, you can always start with abstract shapes, and then you can add detail on top, but it's at the abstract level that really the interest of the design happens. The detail is just the icing on the cake. So play with shapes and proportions and make sure that especially when you're creating a cast of characters, you want to make sure that the overall silhouette is very unique and instantly recognizable. You don't want all your characters to be too similar. Okay, so that's body type, and then we have, and we can add an extra layer of interest to that by thinking about functionality, like how does the character work? I'm going to do some quick drawings here. So let's say we have a character like Spider-Man, right? Let's quickly draw. And I like designs for Spider-Man where the head feels more like some kind of insect. It has this very like round cranium.
He's got those big eyeballs too.
Yeah, I like when they make him feel really like some kind of insect.
Yeah,
it's always fun. So Spider-Man, of course, as we know, is web swinger. So let's say we could give him like huge forearms, right? Because he's swinging on his web all the time. So his forearm muscles would probably be like super developed. Let's rough that in here. And again, it can be as subtle or as exaggerated as you want, depending on the style you're working in, but the principles remain the same. So we're giving huge forearms and maybe also like huge calf muscles for jumping around. And when you're working super stylized, of course, you can exaggerate and sometimes even caricature this stuff to really make it clear.
So only there's a question that if you're working on a Cintiq or on a graphic tablet.
Yeah,
I am working. Yeah, I am working on a graphic tablet indeed.
Mm-hmm.
But if the person who asked the question wants to buy me a Cintiq, they're more than welcome. I wouldn't say no to that.
Anyone that wants to get Swinley a Cintiq, it's much appreciated.
I was so mesmerized by the drawings that I just put wrong thing on the chat that he draws on Cintiq. Then I correct myself.
No worries.
So yeah, if you think about function, like how the character works, it can help you bring an extra layer of storytelling and of interest to your character. And let's say we have a character maybe like the Flash, who is a speedster. And I have to quickly think what the Flash looks like. I think he has lightning, right? So since he's a speedster, you would probably have like more developed legs, so you can really have fun with that, you know, and really push the straight to curve shape design. And maybe we taper it a little bit for the lower leg, and we really like accentuate his strong thighs for from running around at high speeds. So these are just two quick examples, you know, and of course this requires a bit more thought, you know, on your part as an artist, but again, it helps bring this extra layer of interest and storytelling to your comic book hero.
You know, when I think about comics, if I'd ever done something like the X-Men, I always picture like Wolverine to be like a really short, stout, thick block, you know, of a guy, more like the Animal, right?
Mm-hmm.
So and to that point, I think I'm more interested in that. I'm not that much into comics where everyone looks very real. I like that things are pushed stylized in a stylized way relative to function, as you're describing here, you know. I really enjoy that.
Yeah, just more fun, you know, you can really exaggerate or create clarity through exaggeration and caricature.
Yeah, it's cool.
All right, so these are my two demos for today. And the last thing I want to say is, of course, use reference, you know, because what we described here about, especially about functionality, you can see it in the real world, right? If you take athletes, for example, you take a swimmer, they usually would have like more developed lats and shoulders, because that's the part of the body that's they are working all the time. You know, you take an athlete's more developed legs, you take like a ballet dancer, for example, they have like usually this long and elegant physique. So use reference, you know, there's a like an infinite pool of ideas, of inspiration from real life. And it's almost impossible to like hit an artist block or to ever run out of ideas if you're constantly looking at real life for inspiration. All right, hope this helps you guys, and I'm giving it back to Mike.
All right, thank you. I just grabbed a couple images I had on my computer to make Swenley's point here. These are online. I forget where I got these, but they have lineups of athletes, Olympians, that, and you see them all, you know, just wearing like a simple top or a bottom, like a black outfit. And you can see here the different body types that they have based on what sport they're in, right? Like this guy's a hockey, right? Man, this guy's a beast. This guy is a downhill skier, like kind of semi built up top, but look at the size of this guy's thighs, right? So this is the real world. It's not super exaggerated, of course, because it's the real world, but look at, you know, look at the body types and the anatomy, what areas get bulked up and what areas get less bulked up based on the type of sport they play. Look, this guy's a marathon runner, right? He's just like a tall stick, both of these guys, really tall, thin, light. These are all runners. Decathlon all of a sudden takes a little bit more upper body strength. So the body types change dramatically based on their function. So to close up Swenley's point, if you're drawing heroes, you have your own comic book you're designing, try and think about the powers of those characters and their strengths and weaknesses and how their body shapes present that, right? Okay, on to our second section. The second part we want to talk about today is the hero pose, right? So what makes for a hero pose? We can almost go back to what I sketched before, right? I had a character that was kind of standing like this earlier, right? Just doing nothing. right? So this is sort of the opposite of a hero pose. We've got somebody who's just standing here doing this. Well, not really much of anything is going on, right? Even if this character is standing here doing this, maybe they're pushing into one hip, sort of casual, right? Not too much really going on, right? So we got a little bit more character out of, let's say, drawing 1 or drawing 2. But there's a massive difference between this, you know, relative to comics. And one thing I wanted to bring up, there's a lot of conversation that was talking about Italy and Rome and the beautiful art. And it made me want to bring this idea to all you guys, which is, if you're into comics and you understand sort of the, you know, you understand the drama, the ethos of like humanity, and we're talking about heroes and villains, that is something that you can bring to your work. You know, when I draw the models that we draw, many times I have story in my mind about this person is like a superhero, you know, or a god. I think about gods a lot. I used to love like Greek mythology. It was something I was really into. So I see the models in that space, and that always makes them larger than life, which is what heroes are, right? Comic book heroes are larger than life characters. So what can work there with the pose, right? So with the pose, how do we get from sort of the lame ones I just drew to this, right? There's certain things that these comic book artists do, in this case, even a sculptor. I thought this was kind of funny just to bring this in here. I love all the Lego stuff, it's so awesome. Like, why are these considered heroic poses, right? What's the mannerism there? Also, like, what's the mentality there? If you, by the way, just your own body, you stand there and you stand straight, doing nothing with your hands at your sides, or you stand there in this pose that Superman is standing in, I can promise you, psychologically, things will start to change in your mind, right? So keep that in mind. Your brain and body are one thing. When you take poses like this, it actually does start tweaking your psyche, okay? So with that in mind, I'm going to hand this off to Diego. Diego's going to dig in a little further on how do we create hero poses? What's going on between just a regular pose versus a more heroic pose? Okay. All right, I'm going to stop share and hand this over to Diego.
All right, I'm here. What a pressure. So I'm gonna start by telling you a little story about me and comics that may start you to hate me a little bit. Force Guys knows about it. I really hate comics, and the reason is I always feel like betrayed by comics. When I was young, I bought comics because of the cover. We all know the comics cover, that there are amazing illustrations, amazing poses, everything. Then you open the comic, and not every comic, but the ones I bought this time at that time, they were really crappy inside. And of course you have all color on the outside, and then in the inside you have black and white. And then I start to love black and white, of course, you know me. But that was my beginning with comics, and I really hate that thing that happened to me. But now we're going to talk about why the cover of the comics really changed the way you view that illustration specifically. So as Mike says, I don't know if you're kind of see me yet. Let me share this camera to this camera, and let me know if you're now seeing. I'm seeing you, Mike, for some reason.
Yeah, I'll pin your camera.
Okay.
There we go.
There we go. Awesome. Okay, so what I'm gonna tell you now is let's start with what Mike says a minute ago. I'll go and start with that. You know, that's a human being standing up, just doing nothing. I assume you can draw a human being standing up doing nothing. So that's gonna be our start, right? Let's draw this a little better so we can have the underwear, of course. Superheroes always have the underwear on top of his clothing. So I don't know why, but they're superheroes and they do that. So there should be a reason, right? So we have this guy standing up there with his arm to the side of his body. Okay, so we have that. And I'm going to talk about angles. But first, let's talk a little bit about just turning his head to the side. Imagine this guy looking down like that. Can you see there's I'm gonna zoom in a little more there. So can you see the difference just by turning his head like that and putting that orientation, looking down? It changed the feeling of that pose and the feeling of this guy. Oh, why is he looking down? Why is that? It started making you ask questions about it. So we move just the head. So that's start to talk about body language. And if you want to research on that subject, body language is a really useful thing to know when you're drawing. If you understand body language, then it says in communication, 70% of the communication goes to body language, not words. So it's super important to show body language in your drawings. Okay, with that, we just move the head. Let's go again here with another body, and let's start moving angles. We didn't talk about it, but 45-degree angle is the most drama angle we can have, right? 45-degree angles, anything in 45-degree angles, we create more drama, okay? I think we explained this in another live session, so I won't spend time on this. But just to say something, 45-degree angles gives you more drama. So let's try that. Just open his arms to 45-degree angles and open his leg to 45-degree angles. It looks like kind of stupid pose, but look how much space that guy is grabbing. Like it's all this. It's like super big right now. It's this same guy, but the way he's standing, it creates really more power. You're occupying more space. Like if you're sitting down on a chair, imagine you're on a bus and you're sitting, instead of sitting down like, let me change the camera so I can show you with my body. So instead of sitting you like this in the bus, you sit down, you put your hand here, then you could be more space, and that feels you're like bigger. Nobody will sit here or will need to ask you, please, can you move your arm so I can sit down there? So body language is crucial. Let me go back to the drawing now. So we're just open his arms and his legs. We did that. And we have another different feelings. So we also have depth and shape. So Andy already talked about shape, and Ritunja is going to talk about depth. I'm going to just make one little thing here. Imagine if this head is looking down. So I'm moving the angle, but not vertically. Not vertically, but front to back, right? I'm starting to move angles front to back. And here, let's move the chest forward and then the hip backwards, like that. Look the difference now, how you feel that change a little bit more. Ritunja is going to explain that a little more in detail. But take a look at that. I'm just moving little bit things here and there. So now we move his arm out, his leg out, his face down, and his torso like that. Now let's talk a little bit about the C-torso. C-torso is really important for comic book. So for those of you who are new here, C-torsos are just like something like this, like looks like a C, right? It's a C, and here's an invert C to the other side. But we have a problem here, but that we need to be aware. We know that the force line is basically beginning, end, coming from, going to, and an event, right? And in the C, we have all those things, right? Here, we have an event. The problem is we need to be aware where that event is happening. Because if it's happening in the middle, then we are not sure what's really going on with the pose. Imagine if it goes like that. We're gonna have a super belly. instead of a superhero, right? And so the apex of the curve in the C pose for superhero have to be on top, right? We're gonna have something like that, and here we're gonna have the chest like popping out, right? I am here. Who are you, kid? Right? So you're pushing on the top, right? So having this in mind, let's use this and create a simple pose. I'm gonna be quick because I'm kind of getting all the time now. Let's draw, for example, how can I explain this? Let's draw this. We have an archer, right? Dad, can you see that drawing? We have an archer here. And one thing we need to be aware with angles is that this angle should be different than this and this one and also this one. You see, I'm trying not to repeat that angle here. They're all going almost 45, but I'm trying not to repeat those angles, right? And here we have a way more heroic pose than this one. That's just standing like this. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about a really known character that you will pick up immediately. To me, one of the most comic heroes, more dynamic comic heroes is Spider-Man. If you just Google Spider-Man and see the poses, you will find his 45-degree angles everywhere. He's just, let me get this a little closer here, and I'm going to draw it super fast right now for you to see what I'm talking about, right? Something like this. You see this arm, you're going to see this finger, and boom, that goes there. And here's the hand. See, everything is 45 degrees. It's like even the head. Okay, he's looking there and say, okay, and do the thing with the head. Okay, so look at the angles. How important are the angles, and how quickly I can get to a pose? Imagine I'm planning a cover for a comic. I will just draw like this. I would not go into details. So this is a really common Spider-Man pose. Another one is when he's like this with his leg, like that, and the arms. And we also have the other one when he's flying, like he's doing something like this, leg, the other leg. Here we're gonna have like the head looking down, one arm, the other arm, and of course here he's depending on his rope. So look how quickly you can get to a superhero or a hero or a comic book hero pose by understanding angles, right? Just angles. Even if I don't draw it forcefully, okay? Even if I just think about this, I'm posing a superhero by just understanding angles. If you add to angles depth and shape, you're gonna have a really superhero. And one last thing, we always say that line is an idea. And here, at the moment, I cannot, let me go back to my camera so I talk to you face to face. So at the beginning, I can't understand why I like those covers so much and didn't like the insights of the comic, of those specific comics. And the reason was that every line in the cover was thought about. Every single line they put there was really precious. And every line means something. And here, every line is an idea. So if you have an idea and if you can draw it down, put it down on paper, you can have an awesome illustration. So with that, I close my 15 minutes or my half an hour. I don't know how much I spend, but that's my thinking about angles in comic.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Diego.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I think the audience got it. definitely, angles are really important, guys. And 45 is the most dramatic angle that you can draw, right? So if you draw things that are vertical or horizontal, you're stabilizing energy, and it's angles that create dynamism. It's good to have those stable moments as a contrast, even in a pose, but it's those diagonals that really create activity in your posing. So even if you're drawing abilities at a place where you're drawing stick figures, get some angles in there. As soon as you start taking those angles, you start turning them into curves, you actually have the ability to start drawing rhythm and fluidity in the body if you can get those curves to hook up to one another, right? Okay, last but not least, to hand this off to Mrityunjay, we're going to talk about heroes in depth, right?
Mike,
So,
I'm still pinned down here, so I'm gonna
oh,
be showing everything.
oh, sorry, hold on. I thought I should be
Yeah, don't
sharing.
worry. I can be here. I can talk to people. I can do mimic or something.
Oh, that's weird. Oh, yeah, you are. Oh, I know why, because I pinned your camera. That's why. Hold on a second, everyone. Let me unpin
That's
Diego
fine.
here.
I can dance while.
And I will, how do I pin you? Maybe it will be you. We'll just have to stay on you. Here, we'll go to me for a second. Pin, okay. All right, there we go.
Awesome.
Let's go back to Photoshop. Thanks for mentioning that.
Yeah,
So
sure.
here we are. So depth in comics is actually a really big deal. Depth, all of these things, by the way, what we're trying to do is amp up drama. Okay, comic books have a lot of drama in them. So far we've talked about design and showing drama through function, which is what Swenley talked about. What Diego's main topic was on angles and how angles create drama, right? Which actually help in posing. And now last but not least, we're going to talk about the drama of depth. Why is there so much depth in comics, right? So if I drew a character getting ready to do a punch, right? And I said, let's say the character's got a fist here and a fist here, right? And here's their body, right? Let's say here's like one arm like so, and here's their fist, right? And here's the other arm. Not a lot of space in this, okay? Kind of on the more realistic side, to tell you the truth, because our eyes don't see too much depth unless something is really in our face or there's something massive, right? Incredibly close to us. Otherwise, we don't really see that much depth, right? But in comics, we want to amp that up, right? So what's the difference between this, right, what I just sketched, and if I have some comic book images for you here, versus this, right? This is the centerpiece, by the way, is created by Todd McFarlane, right? McFarlane really revolutionized comics and brought Spider-Man like to a whole new level in the early 90s. And he was excellent at not only all the stuff we talked about with shape today, notice all the diagonals that, that Diego mentioned, but look at the amount of space that's in here, right? Look at the Hulk, right? Look at the amount of depth. It looks like he's really like reaching out of the page. Look at this scene with Superman and Batman. We get a huge amount of space between Superman's close arm all the way to his other arm, and then we're moving down and down and down into the camera, down to Batman, right? So I'm gonna hand this off to Mrityunjay. He's gonna show you how to do that, okay? All right, Mrityunjay, I'm gonna bring this over to you.
All right. So let me share my screen. Share content screen there. Yes, hoping you can see it. So yeah, Mike actually covered like the basics of it, and then I'm gonna show you like how this thing works. Why actually this thing works. So this technique is basically let me see that. Yeah. So this is just like a flat piece of paper, like yes. So this is like a flat piece of canvas right now, since I'm drawing digitally. So the way it actually works, the circle thing, right? So for example, if I draw like two circles here, okay, so this is like seems nothing right now. It's just like, yeah, one big circle and one small circle is just like on a flat piece of paper, okay. But if I somehow like trick your mind, okay, trick your mind into an illusion, okay, I just like drag you into an illusion and say you that, yeah, the one that is like bigger is in front of you, like more near to you, and the small is that like at the back it's far away from you, okay? So your mind will just like, yeah, like kind of follow it, okay? So right now it's just like nothing, looking like nothing, but just look like, as soon as I like draw these lines here, okay, it's like, yeah, your mind was like, yeah, it's something like this object, this circle, this sphere, whatever you call it, it's just like going away from us, okay? So you're like standing here, and for example, if I drew like even a bigger circle here, so you were like, yeah, this the object is like rolling in front of us, or like going into that space back, okay? So as an artist, we know this trick, okay, to like as a magician here, we know this how your mind works, okay? So yeah, this is something that works, okay? Because you know that, for example, this could be a hand, this could be a feet, okay, this could be anything that is like pair. So for example, like both arms and both legs. So you're not living on a planet where your one hand is like this big and one has like normal. So on that planet, that might not be the trick to work on, right? Like this is not the way to work there. But since we are living on the planet Earth, we just like have same sizes of both the hands, both the feet, like our bodies built in a symmetrical way. So this illusion works here, okay? So this is how artists trick your mind into in an illusion that, yeah, they're like drawing small things, that makes your mind think that, yeah, the thing is far away, and that's the thing is like really coming out of the paper, okay? So everybody's kind of like talking about Spider-Man, and Spider-Man is really close to my heart as well, okay? So I'm gonna do a little, really quick drawing, okay? And this is a really good opportunity for me, like to sum up the shape and the angles, like all those things. Okay, so yeah, just let's go and let's see what we can do here, okay? So I'm building off a pose from imagination, and let's see. I'll try to like sum up all the concepts together, okay? So you can watch that, you can just like get and feel like, yeah, how I can accomplish like a full drawing, okay? So right now, like basically, just right from the start, it seems like nothing, it just like seems like a normal figure, okay? But watch, just watch it, just, yeah. So right now it's like just a normal head and the body like going into an S curve there, okay? So let's see what we can do with it. I'm gonna make it really small so I can play with this space. So let's say I can just make this hand like really small there, okay? And let's see what I can do with the other hand here. I can make it like full screen. And with the depth, as I'm like summing up all the things, I'm using the shape, I'm using a lot of shape. So I'm not doing this, sorry. I'm doing this, with the rhythm, okay? But I'm like using like the shape, for example, for the hand or the leg, okay? So you'll see me doing that for the whole drawing. And again, I'm making it small because I really want to play with that space. So I will be needing like too much depth here. Yeah. So let's see, I can like push this thigh like into the like forward, okay? Right now also it's like pretty average, okay? Let's say, but in the end, I'm gonna guarantee you, you'll be like, what this guy is up to? He's on steroids right now. Yeah, something like this. So you can see like how I'm just like doing some soft touching things, okay? And it's not basically about like all the process that we have all like covered. And yeah, if you want to like see the whole like full 1 hour in-depth process of this skill and depth, you can watch our stream, that we have done on the scale thing. But look here, so let's see if I can tighten up more just to make it clear. So with the human proportions, and let's make Spider-Man, let's give him that Spidey look. Give him that Spidey look there. I really love this guy, man. Anyways, So what I'm talking about, yeah, it's just that you want to watch that stream, you know, go on depth with that, right? So let's see, with the hand, I've done this. So in normal human proportions, you know, what you will see is that our hand, for example, like our wrist here, is like almost, when you put it here, it goes from chin to your hairline. Okay, it's like the general proportions. But look here, if I make it more small here, you know, I just want to make it more small here, something like this, like a really like a general hand there. So now you can see like the face has become more bigger, okay, than it used to be, like from the hand. So your mind thinks like, yeah, it's kind of like, it's kind of, because it's if we just like hide all of this from here and just like show you this, there's like not much. It's like, yeah, that hand is like going a little bit back there. But, you know, watch as I go, watch as I proceed. Yeah. It's just like now your hand is like become more bigger than your feet. Okay, so here's like my feet. Okay, and here's like my hand, you know, so only my like one finger in the drawing is just like, it like covers up like half of the feet there. Okay, so this is like how your mind works, you know, we are like tricking all the way, like just we are just like tricking. Okay, so that's like the term I can use there. Okay? And hope I'm doing good on time.
Yep.
Yeah. So something like this. So I got a little more time to like tighten up this drawing more. Okay, so let's see where this is takes up. So with like bringing up everything here, I'm using the scale. You can see like I'm using the scale. So you can imagine like a box. Okay, yeah, box is like pretty good graphic way to know that you can like put the scales in here. And what you can also do is, if I show you, you can just like draw boxes. Okay, just to decide. So for example, you're trying to draw a pose, like a really foreshortened and in-depth pose. So what you can do is like put boxes. Okay, so for example, you're like, yeah, I just want my hand, the left hand or my right hand to go here, or my left hand to go here, like this big. Okay, and then I want my feet like here, like it's this big. So it's like a kind of this hand, or maybe like my hand is like this big. Okay, because it's like doing this pose here. Okay, so now you can see like how those boxes like playing with the space, you know, that 3D space there. Okay, and you can draw boxes for like bodies. So you are like, yeah, my torso, okay, my torso would be like this, like here, and the hand is gonna come up to all the way to here. And yeah, you can just like basically you can play with those boxes, and then you draw in it's the body, the figure itself. Okay, figure in it. So that will give you just like the guidelines. Okay, right now I'm drawing directly, you know, so yeah, choose whatever method that you want. Okay, so let's see. And you will see me using a lot of shapes. Okay, so it was just like this. Okay, maybe like the rhythm is just like this, or the software is just like this, but I'm like doing this to it. Okay, so yeah, a straight and a curve, a straight and a curve. So yeah, I'm trying to use as a lot of shapes as I can, because that's like a pretty you can call it like comic style. Okay, something like this with the fingers, the butter knife, and here like my, and what you know what I can do is I can even make it more shorter here. I'll be like the strings like falling off of that.
Ritunjay, someone's asking what you're drawing in. What's your software?
Oh, I'm actually drawing on Procreate on iPad 10.5 inch. Hope that clears. Using a lot of shapes, you know. And I'm using the Force Pack, so you also have a chance to like download these if you just sign up on our site. It's free. Okay, so here I got the feet. Yes, just like that.
One thing, ironically, we didn't really focus on today, but Mrityunjay is exhibiting really well here is force, right? Like we're here on this force channel, and it's Force Friday, and force is an amazing tool to draw superheroes with, of course, right? Like the more force you can put into your figures, the more drama you're bringing to these superheroes and supervillains or superheroines, for that matter, right? It's what makes these characters full of energy and of, full of power. So, don't forget force is the thing that's gluing all of this together and helping us create a lot of drama. Like the Renaissance, like we talked about earlier, right? There's this overarching beauty and sort of romantic, poetic like feel to the Renaissance. And you can be doing that with these heroes also.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was basically just like I soft touch everything, and it gives me like that box thing that I talked to you about. Okay. So it was in my mind. So it's not necessary that I drew it. Okay. So whatever method you just choose, okay, go with it. But again, you have to like do it with force. Okay. Otherwise you just like lose all the energy. Okay. So again, as Mike said, it was like the glue. The force is like the glue to like everything that happens here. Okay. So yeah, I think I hope you like it, and I'm gonna pass it over to Mike for the conclusion. Okay, thank you.
Wow, we're like early on time today. This is a whole new thing. I'm like unprepared. What should I talk? What should I talk about here? Well, let's see.
Hmm.
Everyone had fun drawing, so maybe I'll do some sketching here. Uh,
Okay,
you
I'm
can see,
gonna hit the jump.
I did that already with the thumbnail, of course, right? So when I was drawing the thumbnail, I was thinking that obviously this is like a generic Superman kind of character and a Spider-Man character. You could see I drew this using soft touch. I drew it thinking about scale. Originally, this arm was a lot smaller, and I thought, oh, you know what, scale is something we should talk about for this topic. So I made this hand a lot larger and made the arm larger. But no matter what's going on, like I said, force is what's tying all this stuff together, right? So we don't want to forget that. So in closing, let's see, I'll try to doodle some characters for you guys. We got a few more minutes left. Let's see here. I like this idea of Superman, and we talked about leading edge in the comet. So having like his chest be the leading edge to him flying, right? Maybe he's actually flying chest first, right? It's kind of cool, right? So I'm going to push his rib cage out here. Here's the diagonals that Diego was talking about, right? I've got the chest to even the stomach, like that pushes the C. The bottom of the rib cage is where that apex is, right? I'm going to drag his body behind that, right? So ironically, Superman was a baby and was an asteroid, basically, right? So here I am thinking of him as an asteroid again, but this time it's in his flight, right? And I'm going to push the space of his arm going back there like that. I'll draw smaller, smaller hands because I actually want them back there. There's the top of his deltoid. So I didn't push too much space on this one. I'm thinking more about leading edge. I've got a little bit of overlap causing the depth. Notice I created one big shape for both of his legs, kind of a little trick, but the front of the thigh on both of them in this pose doing the same thing. So I combine them, and I can then split them up afterwards and say, well, this leg's here, but they're both doing the same thing. All right. Got his cape going here. He's got to have his little curl whipping back. Superman was a big deal for me too. Spider-Man and Superman, when I was a kid, really young, were a really big thing for me. I watched the Spider-Man cartoons, and I grew up on the Christopher Reeve superhero, Superman films. Yeah, really. I think I have to say, profoundly affected me. So here's a Superman. You always got to get these serratus in there, just an anatomical detail. But to me, when I think of superheroes, their anatomy's always got to be awesome enough for you to see the serratus poking out from under the lats, right? It's always a big deal, right? Not that easy to get those guys. All right, so there's a Superman for
Or a
you.
superhero model like Trinidad. Trinidad has those.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You got to be not only thin and ripped enough to have them, but also muscular enough in that area for them to even show up, right? So there's a Superman. So notice I'm thinking about speed. The whole concept behind this sketch is this, right? He's one giant directional force with a lot of applied force, right? I'm like, boom, I want him to pull it off that way, right? So that's one. Let's see, we got a couple more minutes left. Let's see if we can get another Spider-Man out here. I used to be really shocked with McFarlane's ability, you know, to get Spider-Man all these crazy poses. And I feel so happy to say that, you know, now I get it. Like, I understand what he's doing. But man, at the beginning, I was like, I don't know how this guy can draw like that, right? We can put Spider-Man's leg like all the way over here. Maybe it's really big, right? Like really in the foreground, right? Maybe his foot even gets bigger, right? We've got his body back here and his head poking out from it. And I'm just gonna go like crazy with scale. It's like off the page. Now I'm like, I kind of love these traps. It's like, oh my God, I have this giant leg here. Like, what am I gonna do? Here's, maybe I'll put this shoulder here and try to get this arm out back here so we can see it in silhouette, right? Maybe he's got his fingers up. He shot webs off over there, right?
That's a Spider-Man pose when he dropped a coin.
Exactly. So we got this over here. I'm pushing into the shoulder. Maybe this arm we try to put out into space. I'm going to keep it really simple and get him a small hand down there, right? Like really small, right? So you'll notice I'm drawing all this stuff from very simple force shape, right? I can get all the anatomy and stuff piled on there. You can see a very simple C torso in here, right? I get another leg out here. Notice I'm trying to frame, I'm trying to fight tangents, right? And I'm in this very challenging moment because I have all these like limbs flying all over the place, right? So I'm like going into this negative space over here to try to fit this in there. So I'm like, well, let me maybe get his leg out there. Maybe I get that leg going off in space as well, like piled up in the foreshortening there. You see, like, so it's kind of a fun challenge. If, you know, once you start learning how to draw with force and you understand shape design, you'll notice that you have the creative ability to pose these guys however you want. If I were to redraw this one, what I don't like is I like creating contrast across all the angles of the limb. So this right now and this are kind of similar, you know. I think maybe I would change this. Let's change the arm. We got like a minute left or so. I might take this arm and push it somewhere else, right? Maybe we reverse this one too and we go up this way. Let's get rid of this. Maybe we go this way, right? And then go back in space and down, right? So I'm basically always like rerouting the superhighways of force through the character's poses. And because I know rhythm and I know the rules of force, I know where to go in the body, I know the templates, right? I can keep doing that. I can keep doing it and doing it to get until I get to a pose that I like. Notice how much drawing through I'm doing, right? The whole body is there. I see it through the leg in order for me to make sure the whole thing connects, right? Now, what I don't like is that I'm not crazy about this leg and this foot ending in the same place vertically. You see that? So, you know, again, I would think I could take this leg now, maybe I just push it out further, right? Maybe we take this leg and we say, I'm going to push it out all the way to here. So this way, I got more of a diagonal, right? That's happening in between those two moments, you see? And then I got to watch this. You see, now I got to fall into that trap. So I might bring that foot over here more, or maybe the hand comes in more. But this is a good closing, right? We didn't talk too much about rhythm and force today. I want you to be aware. Force is what finally ties all this stuff together, right? So here's a Spider-Man drawing where we have shape designed from Swenley. We've got all the diagonals that we talked about with Diego, and we've got tons of depth and scale, which is what Tunje talked about, right? Look at the size of that hand. Look at the size of that foot, right? Like insane. Or look at that foot compared to this foot, right? So we're going to close up there. I hope you guys enjoyed our talk about drawing heroes. We're going to do more comic book stuff in the future. We've been brainstorming around maybe doing like, how do you do battle scenes? We'll hopefully do heroines and villains, and what does that all look like relative to Force. So more of that to come. Have a great week, everyone. Stay safe. Thank you, Matunje, Diego, and Swenley for supporting Force this afternoon or evening for some of you guys. This Force Friday. And that's it. Go read some comics, all right? And try drawing drama. Take care, everyone.
All right, see you.
Bye.
Have a nice weekend.
Yeah,
Bye,
bye-bye,
guys.
everyone.